Welcome back to Seek of Strength. This is our competition review. So this past weekend I competed at the Emerald Cup 2023 in Dublin. This is run by BJJ Ireland. At this competition I competed as an ultra heavy. Now you may remember from our competition over a year ago in Bristol, at Bristol Open, my first jiu-jitsu competition. I said I would never do the ultra heavies again and have since done the super heavy category, which is under 100.5. For this competition, however, I just didn't really feel like cutting the half a kilo to a kilo that I needed to make the super heavies. I just wanted to do a competition, and I also wanted to see how I would fare against the ultra heavies about a year later of plenty of jiu-jitsu practice, and I wanted to see how I would fare up and have a different kind of challenge in competition. Now, as always with these competition reviews, when we show you both the good and the bad, this is as much document our training, showing you guys how we're progressing, showing you guys our thought process, and it was done with as much humility as possible and is no way a gloat of winning or anything like that, as we do show the losing as well as much as we can. So it's not in any way hopefully seen as a negative to competitors, because it's a little bit different. I show all of my weightlifting, and if I was doing competitions, I would show those as well. And so I just want to emphasize that we're still white belts. I'm still a white belt at the end of the day. The people I beat could easily come back in 2 years' time and demolish me, and vice versa for the people I lose to. So doing it with as much humility as possible, and just want to show you guys how training and competition is going for your entertainment and hopefully for maybe some inspiration to go compete. So here's my first fight. As you can see, it's held in the National Indoor Arena in Sport Ireland. So it's kind of a very large sporting campus, a great, really well-equipped gym for things like athletics and swimming. It's near the National Aquatics Centre. Of course, there is no weightlifting there because they're not allowed. They're not allowed to get in there. So essentially, this is my first fight. Initially, what I try and do at the moment during competitions is just feel out my competitors a little bit. I've been working a lot on my takedowns and throws in the last while. They are still very basic, and as I mentioned, I have been trying them and I've been learning a lot about them, and some of them are going quite successful. So like any skill, it does take a period of time to get better, so I've been working on those. However, in competition, it is important at the heavy weights, I find, that just to feel it out a little bit, see how it's going, see how your competitor is well balanced, and then not to commit to anything too early, as I've made that mistake before. So here, kind of a messy single leg, but I got the job done. So moving to side control, north-south, then you'll hear my coach in the audio, you'd hear him shouting knee on belly, and then just move to the other side. So I don't particularly like mount, and it's something I'm definitely going to work on more, is my attacks from mount are quite limited, and I'm not super comfortable with them. Now again, knee on belly is just for points, and attacks from mount are things that, I want to work on, because it's very important, obviously, to be versatile, but it's a very important position, especially as super heavy or a heavier athlete, to use those positions. Now, in competition, you're only going to do what you do well in training, and so since I don't do a lot of attacks from mount, I'm not going to do them in the competition. But from here, just knee on belly, so I'm a couple of points up at this stage, and I'm going for a grip for a bow and arrow choke. However, there is a variation I like, and I'm not sure what it's called, but if the opponent rolls from you, which sometimes happens, so you see he's rolling onto his belly or into a turtle position, so you simply just kind of get the hooks in and then hang from the side, and if you have a strong grip and you have a lot of weight behind it, you can hold onto that position and finish the choke. And then potentially if they roll the other way, if they roll with your choke, so they can't turn into your hand, but if they roll with it, then you can simply shift down to the bow and arrow, which I've done a couple of times. So as I say, it's something that you practice in training, is what you're going to do in competition. So that was the first fight, quite successful, submission, very happy. Next up, this is our second fight. So during the takedowns, my coach had just let me know between this fight and the first fight that I needed to not accept the pressure so much. There's no need for me to accept it. You kind of waste a lot of energy. So I was kind of a little bit looser here. Coming into this competition and these fights in particular, I was very confident, nice and relaxed, nice and kind of even-minded. I knew the things I needed to do. I didn't have any game plan, which is something I made a mistake of before, because it can give you a little bit of tunnel vision, or me give it to me personally. So just doing the things I know to do well, responding to them. I've been practicing a lot of judo throws, and they're getting better and better. See, I went for an uchimata here, didn't quite get it, didn't overcommit to it, but there was no need. And here we have just a very simple kind of snap down or sort of a snap down with an arm drag. So I'm just thinking to my coach here, he's just giving me a bit of advice. But with the takedowns, something I'm practicing a lot, as I think is very important for jiu-jitsu, as all competitions start standing, so it's very important to be good at that. I really enjoy doing them. It's incredibly satisfying when you get a good judo throw. So here, just putting a lot of pressure on top. In the side control, look, sometimes white belts will tap the pressure, and if I don't have to overexpose myself, I'm going to make an effort to do that. So you can see from here, change direction quite fast, but of course I'm not going to give up the mount. So I'm up 2 points for the takedown. I haven't got any other points yet, so I'm just going to move to knee on belly from here. I don't, as I mentioned, don't love mount, but I'm trying to stay on top. So he recovered his half guard, so fast with the legs. And from here, just putting a little bit more pressure on. So I'm trying to twist him away so I can escape the half guard. I should be really twisting him in the other direction and then going to the opposite direction with my leg to escape the half guard. But it wasn't overly tight, and I wasn't overly committing to anything, as I didn't want to get swept and lose the top position, as I was only up 2 points at this stage and it was quite early in the fight, or still 3 minutes in. So staying in the top, just putting the pressure on. You could see he was getting quite uncomfortable, so I was just trying to make use of it. Obviously, in training, you wouldn't do this much pressure unless it was some kind of in-gym gripe. But in reality, save this pressure for training. You can see, just looking at my coach here, I'm literally pointing the direction he's telling me to go. So he's telling me, kind of give me advice. And I love the coaching on the sidelines at jiu-jitsu camps. So full mount here, got my 4 points for it. But as I was saying, I love the coaching in jiu-jitsu camps. I love the help. I like the emotional support in some ways, maybe, but I also like the direction. It's very useful because it's so much better for more experienced people to help you. So at this stage, I'm up 9 points, and there's 2.5 minutes left in the fight. Obviously, I'm in a great position here. Realistically, I always want a submission. I'm always going to want those, as everyone does in jiu-jitsu. It's the more favorable win. However, competition is competition, and a win is a win. And so I'm not going to go for anything crazy here. I'm up 9-0. I'm in mount. I'm in a good position, so there's no reason for me to do anything crazy. As I mentioned, I don't love mount, and it's something I definitely need to be working on. But from here, just holding this position, keeping the overhook on one side and the underhook on other. It's just walking his arm up a little bit to see if I could go for an armbar. He had that kind of T-Rex arm position in. But there was no concern, just making sure I'm kind of going for things and feeling something out, but again, not overly committing. So putting a little bit more pressure. So I'm just searching for an arm in triangle without losing it. Again, I feel even more comfortable, to be honest, inside controlling because I have a lot more freedom. It's harder when you have shorter legs to maintain the full mount position. And if you are a taller person, mount is great because you can really put the control down with your legs and spread your base out. But if you are more compact, it's a little bit more difficult for a good mount position against other people. So just searching for some cross collar grips here, and searching for an underhook. Again, under no pressure. I really wanted a submission, but if I lost the fight, as you'll see, 12-0, if I lost the fight 12-0 to here, my coach would murder me if I lost it for going for a submission. So going back for knee and belly. So I'm just looking for a collar grip again, searching for the bow and arrow. Couldn't quite get the full grip, but I wasn't overly committing. Again, with less than a minute to go, I wasn't going to lose, because the astronomical bollocking I would have got if I went here. Got a little distracted there, so need to focus on that a bit more as well. So the bollocking I would have got if I lost for going for a submission up 12-0 with 30 seconds left. So again, you can see here, fight's nearly over, so there's no pressure. Trying to escape. It's a tough position to escape from side control, especially if someone uses their weight well and the underhooks. So just moving around a little bit, back to north-south, keeping the pressure on, just watching the clock. Just going to go for an armbar here to see if he'd lose it. But the clock was out, so it was there were 5 seconds left, so I left it go. And so that was the second match. Now here's the last match, and here's one of the matches which I'll learn a lot from. And always, like I mentioned in the Instagram post, you win or you learn. And I lost this match to him. Now my biggest failings here was I essentially lost the match before I started. So I saw that he was a very tall opponent. I'd say maybe in the region of 6'4" or more. Very, very tall. And I kind of had the thought process that I might need to change my game plan for him. And so instead of doing the things I'm usually good at, I got a little bit haphazard, I suppose, or a little bit less. I didn't zone in on the things I'm good at, and then I ended up losing the fight, which is my own fault. So he was going for some single legs. My main issue here, my main goal here while standing up was to snap down and drag him down. Obviously, as taller opponents, you don't want them standing up fully above you. So I want to keep his back as parallel with the floor as possible to put a lot of weight in his head, fatigue him, and keep him in a less than optimal position. So here, I was just kind of searching out positions and searching out for a leg for the takedowns. Usually with taller people, if you put a lot of pressure on them, they will end up pulling guard. As you can see, he's kind of walking into there, just looking for little leg sweeps and maybe some throws, just feinting to see what he'd do. But again, not overly committing to anything, as I did not want to end up on the bottom. So you can see you have 2 collar grips, and just making sure he doesn't get any better grip. He wasn't really going for much other than that single leg. And he eventually pulled guard, as I was hoping to do. Now, this is where I kind of fucked up, to be honest, because generally I'm much better. So here, just keeping the pressure on from the sweep and avoid it to make sure I don't end up on bottom. Normally, I'm pretty happy if someone pulls guard, people bigger or same size or whatever. Usually the guard passing is something that I'm quite good at. And from there, I just didn't attempt any good passes. Really what I zoned in on was resisting his sweeps. But I could have killed 2 birds with a stone by going for better passes while resisting his sweeps. So I kind of not seized up. Seize up is kind of the wrong phrase. I really just kind of didn't act accordingly and act what I'm good at in these positions. So he had his grips here and he's going to go for this sweep, but I should have been posturing up a little bit more and really going for better positions and going for a pass, which I obviously do quite well usually in training. So sitting back here, so not letting him get a grip. I should have gone for a staggered stance or kind of a split stance in this position. So he's going for a collar grip, but not really a major concern here. Obviously his guard is quite good given the length of his legs, and generally it's quite hard to sweep someone, or for me to get swept in that position, given the hamstring and ass, the dump truck strength. But I should have been going for more passing here rather than just kind of not acting. So I should have been much more active in these positions. So disappointed is the right word, but it's also the wrong word in some ways. Learning from this is definitely something very important, as I certainly have made better decisions and I'm capable of this. It wasn't an issue that he was taller. I shouldn't have changed anything really. I should have gone for the passes. So he got on top here. He got for a sweep. It's bad sweep from my point of view. Too easy for him to get me down. And so in this position then, so he's a north-south. I was really conscious of just not wasting too much energy, but making sure he doesn't get an opportunity to attempt anything. Essentially, I was kind of waiting for him to end up in full mount or to go for the full mount position. While I might not like being in full mount, getting out of full mount is something I've worked quite hard at to get out of once people are there. And so in this position, you don't want to let him get grips or any underhooks or specifically any collar position. So he's working for side control. Again, I'm trying not to expend too much energy, as you can waste a lot of energy in that regard. But at the same time, I'm still trying to make some moves to see what his weight is like. See, can I roll him, which can happen sometimes. And just feeling this out. Again, I should have never ended up in this position. Like when you ask your professor, your black belt, and you're like, what do I do in this position? They're like, don't end up there, which is an annoying but funny answer at the same time. So here I'm just feeling it, seeing it, trying a little bridging, see what his balance is like. So we got reset. You can see we're both pretty fatigued. He's putting a lot of pressure down. The ref was like, come on, no time to rest, keep going, which is funny. It's funny, I like the refs in competition. They're really nice to white belts usually. They're really sour and kind of dour sometimes, not sour. They're really stoic in some ways, but they're also very nice to white belts too. Like they're quite, usually for IBJJF rule set competitions and usually BJ Ireland, it's minimum brown belts. So you can see I got out of the bottom position here, and this is probably the biggest mistake I made. Here I shouldn't have gone for the footlock, or rather I should have gotten the footlock in much better. And normally my footlocks are superb and I get a lot of people with them, and it's something I committed to too early. And it's kind of funny when it's like in shooting. Sometimes you take a shot when you're hunting and you immediately know it's a bad shot. And I knew when I committed to that footlock too early, I knew it was the bad decision. So I should have passed or gone for the pass when I was ample opportunity. He didn't have many grips. His feet were in front of me, so I could have maneuvered around him. And then in the footlock position, I should have let it come in a little bit closer. And usually the footlocks are very hard to get out once I get it on. So bad decisions from my end. Great learning also from my end. So very, very valuable. My big thing as a white belt is to get as many competitions in as possible as a white belt, so I can learn as much from those competition experiences, because there's specific competition experiences that you need to learn about, and the only way you learn about them is as you compete. And now I don't want to get to blue or purple belts or higher belts, and I don't want to get to there and have only done like 2 or 3 competitions, because I like competitive jiu-jitsu. I want to compete in jiu-jitsu. So obviously if jiu-jitsu is something you do for a different reason and not competing, then you don't have to worry about competing. But as someone who loves competing in jiu-jitsu, I want to get as much experience as a white belt as possible, because there won't be as many costly mistakes, or if they are, it'll give me a better opportunity to learn from them. So if I can get 15 competitions as a white belt done, I will be in a much better position as I go along, because I don't want to get to my first blue belt competition and have it be my 3rd competition. That's not a great scenario to be in. And so it's funny, it follows the same process as it does with weightlifting, and I can see myself my first year and a half or so of weightlifting, and I see the first 2 years of weightlifting, and I see how my competition experience went, and I saw how I learned from those and how much better comps I've gotten in weightlifting. And similar with jiu-jitsu, I've won the last 4 of my 5 fights in competition, and every time you get so much better and you learn so much more in training, and it's so motivating in training to look at these aspects. And every competition is a new situational experience that I can learn from, and I can talk to my coach, I can ask him, and we can work on those aspects. And again, trying to get as many comps as a white belt as possible that I can learn from. Things that I'm going to get better at, or I want to work at from this competition, is really want to work on the throws and keep working on those. They're getting a lot better. Specifically the judo throws. I've been working on Uchimata and Teotoshi and Taniotoshi, I think. So are the 3 main ones that I've been working on. And some of them, I hit them sometimes and they're super clean, and other times then they're shit. But that's okay. I'm still learning the skill, and it's something I really want to emphasize. And as I mentioned in the last competition video, it's something I want to work on, and I have been working on it, and I'm quite happy how the progress is going. And eventually it'll become nearly second nature, and I'll be in quite a good position, and hopefully to use them in competition, as obviously all comps start on your feet. So it's very important to be able to get to the ground in a favorable position. Second thing then is, of course, attacks from mounts. As I mentioned, I need to zone in on 1 or 2 things and get used to them. I do like trying different things, and it's definitely recommended. There's a lot of great people who are very good at jiu-jitsu who told me that it's trying different things is a great way of getting better, and it's something I need to bring up as well. I don't want any major holes in my game as much as possible. So some attacks from mounts, while it might be more difficult, are definitely valuable for me to get and see if I can figure out some ones that work really well for me. Third, from that, in terms of this, I want to keep working on the mental approach to this, and it's gotten much better every competition. Never any nerves really before competition, certainly some excitement. This is maybe into my, I'm almost certain this is into my 40s individual competition when you include weightlifting. So there's no real nerves in terms of competition experience. There's some excitement, but like, for example, in this final fight, I lost this fight essentially before I started. I should have just approached it the same way as the other fights, where I'm nice and calm, relaxed, see what happens, wait for those opportunities to do the things I'm good at. And that's what I didn't do in this fight. And I made some bad decisions, and I think I lost this essentially before that. So it's a very good learning experience for me, and I'll need to work on that and bring that experience into the next competitions I do and learn from those. Of course, then the last part of my kind of learnings from this is just keep getting better at jiu-jitsu, keep rolling, keep learning from people. What I love about jiu-jitsu is that, as opposed to weightlifting, you can learn loads from random people of any level. You can learn loads from blue belts right up until the black belts. You can learn loads of stuff. You can learn things that are super useful. In weightlifting, for example, you're not going to learn anything from someone who's been lifting for 6 months realistically. But if jiu-jitsu, you can see a blue belt or another white belt do something that you mightn't have seen before, and it looks so obvious now, but you're like, that's phenomenal. That's such a useful thing that I can use in my own training or implement. And there's a lot to learn from a lot of people. So I love that about jiu-jitsu, and there's a lot of opportunities to improve your game. The way I think about jiu-jitsu in my head is when I'm rolling with an opponent, they ask me a question and I need to know the answer. And if I don't know the answer, I die. But essentially, that's how I kind of sum it up in my brain. And the more questions you learn and the more answers you learn, and there's kind of different answers to different questions. And you can ask people harder questions until you win. And that's kind of how I think about it in my brain. And there's a lot of answers you can learn from people. In terms of training plans going from here, I will be continuing, as I mentioned in a last training vlog, just looking for a better recomposition of my body camp. As I mentioned, I'm in quite good composition at the moment, but I'd like to be in pretty sick composition. Not for any particular reason, not for health reasons. It's not even that necessary for training. It's just something that I kind of want to do. You know, I've been in very good condition before, and it's just something I want to kind of do it again at the moment. Obviously be beneficial for kind of conditioning and positions and weightlifting and stuff like that. But primary reason is just want to do it, to be honest. As Zach has ruined, we're actually, and as you guys probably guessed, it wasn't that hard. We're going to Japan, myself and Dara, Clarence and Zach, in approximately July. So it'll be primarily weightlifting focused trip, of course. I'm not going to stop jiu-jitsu. I don't want to. Would it be the better option? Absolutely. But I'm probably going to keep jiu-jitsu around 2 sessions a week and then increase weightlifting to approximately 3 to 4 sessions a week. And I will see how that's progressing. If things are going well near the trip, I'll probably reduce jiu-jitsu further and focus a bit more on the weightlifting. But I don't really want to give up the jiu-jitsu at the moment. I'm confident I can get back to certain numbers while doing 2 sessions of jiu-jitsu a week. But beyond that, if I want to make meaningful progress, I want to make PBs, I would have to essentially stop jiu-jitsu or reduce it to like 1 session a week with minimal rolling. And while I still would learn from that, it would of course stall progress. So what I would like is probably a bigger squat in Japan. And that's something I can do with jiu-jitsu. So I'll talk to Anton and we'll kind of discuss training and I'll see how things are going. I'm kind of in a good position to make progress if I want to commit to training. It's just that I really love jiu-jitsu at the moment. But of course I love weightlifting, but you can only serve them so much, you know. And it's easier for me to progress my jiu-jitsu at the moment, but weightlifting would take a lot of hours back in. And like we saw from last year, you know, I went from essentially no weightlifting for months or like 1 or 2 sessions and essentially I did no clean and jerks at all for months. I went from the bar in the clean and jerk and I think it was like 90 kilo snatches to 143, 170 in the space of like 2.5 months. So they come back to a reasonable period reasonably quickly. It's to get that progression is the big one, you know. So stay tuned for that. I'll keep you guys updated as my thoughts progress and as training progresses. And hopefully we will produce something good out of this. I'm spoiled for choice in terms of training and I'm very blessed with that regard that I'm able to do so much and enjoy so much and get so much out of it and have the opportunities from that. So I'm in no way conflicted or emotionally negative about this. This is a fantastic position to be in a position where I have a lot to choose from essentially and a lot of opportunities from that. So I just want to make sure I'm making kind of smart decisions, but more importantly, decisions that are going to keep me happy in terms of training. So thanks for watching this and I hope you guys enjoy these. If you have any comments on anything, if you're well practiced in judo, if you're well practiced in jiu-jitsu, again, feel free. While I have my own coach, of course, and plenty of people to help me, I am all ears just to see if someone's like, oh, you know what's good in this thing? Try this here. Or they're like, when you're doing an uchimat in the gi, try this grip. I'm all ears. I will absolutely look into it. It's very valuable to think about and see what people think. So feel free to leave any advice below. Absolutely, again, a white belt for a reason. So thanks for watching. If you are a combat sports athlete, if you're jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, grappling, striking, kickboxing, boxing, whatever it is. I will link the Combat Sports Athlete program below. This is a 10-week program, 4 sessions a week, but you can run it over the course of maybe 20 weeks where you do 2 sessions in the gym a week, which is plenty for a lot of people. The 10-week program is for people who are ready to take a little step back from their sport for a period of time to build up some strength, muscle and some power to then go into a good season. But if you're currently training and you're nice and consistent, you can do the 2 sessions a week. People do great with it either way, as generally the people who do 2 sessions are more amateur athletes and they'll say benefit from a consistent training plan over that course of time, whereas a lot of the people who run it 4 sessions a week are higher level athletes and they benefit a lot from that short or 10-week intense program where they're still doing some sport specific work, but they're also getting after their hypertrophy and their strength and conditioning work, and the strength and power program from the combat sport program couples with that lovely.